Jeanette Nguyen.
Hi, how are you?
Thanks for coming on the show.
I'm happy to be here. It's such a fun vibe. I'm loving the atmosphere.
Yes, and I'm super grateful to Evan Bliss for introducing us.
Thanks, Evan.
Thanks, Evan. We love you very much.
We love Evan. He's a fun guy.
You and I have had a solid 2 hours of just unpacking all things life. It's been so nice.
It has been very nice. I've learned a lot about you and
Me
your
too.
fascinating background.
Me too, about you. Yeah.
I'm all over the place, but I love it.
We're very super connectory. It's nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really excited to unpack. We have, let's see, we have a lot of topics lined up, mainly the work in social impact education,
Yes.
and especially the intersection of entertainment and civic engagement, which I'm super looking forward to talking to you about. It's a very important field. Actually, a lot of Los Angeles can leverage the entertainment industry for these styles of purposes, whether it be civic engagement or, like we were talking about, with enlightenment and awakening, investigating consciousness, executing the sustainable development goals, all of these sort of leverage entertainment in Hollywood for tackling these biggest
Absolutely.
projects.
They
and
say the
challenges.
world moves forward with a story, right?
Yes, exactly. And so leverage the mimetic capital, the story capital, to catalyze more and more of the execution of those biggest challenges.
Yes. And the media power and the talent here, which is why I'm so excited that you're having this podcast in LA.
Yes.
What a nice breath of fresh air.
Yes.
The weather's better, too.
The big move. I love it. I love it. And I love being in a new nodal cluster and exploring that, because you get saturated in terms of nodal clusters and connections when you have been somewhere for a long period of time, several years and that kind of a thing. And then so having these fresh new bonds connecting between nodes is so fun. And just seeing where that next one goes and how it's going to open up so many epic doors. And that's kind of what this has been like with you already so far, with Evan and with people like you. And we had Zeb Kroll on the show, and we're going to have a lot of other I am already watching the branching happening of entry into so many different clusters. It's like, love it. It's so fun. Jeanette, you're not only a very colorful person, you have a very colorful background and a very colorful star. So let's go through the journey. So walk me through who you were growing up, your family lineage.
Yeah.
Also kind of like that childhood discovery of your star. Take us on the journey.
Yeah, I guess I'll start with my mom. So my mom was a refugee from Vietnam. She came here on a boat. She was 5 days at sea in like this rickety boat, landed in the Philippines, stayed there for 6 months, actually was raped in the Philippines, got pregnant with my brother, gave birth to him in Philadelphia, and the guy was completely abusive. So one day when he was like gone or left, she told me that she had a little bit of money saved and she took off with my brother to California and hid from him. Met my dad while taking English classes, and what she loved about my dad was his family. He has a very fun, colorful family, and she said she felt so alone because here she was by herself in California with a baby, so she needed that stability. Married my dad. That relationship didn't work because they were polar opposites, and had 2 kids with him. So divorced my dad when I was 4. But, this is how I like to describe my dad. My dad is an excellent dad, but he's an awful husband. He was very much around for me when I was a kid, doted on me, was obsessed with me, was in love with me. I was like his pride and joy. So growing up, it's like, it was very much a dichotomy. I felt like I lived a double life. My dad was very irresponsible. I think I mentioned to you earlier that if I didn't have my mom around, I'd probably be a raging narcissist. I could do no wrong in his eye. I was always perfect. If I had a bad grade in school, it was the teacher's fault. It was never my responsibility. Whereas my mom was the complete opposite. It's like, let me give you a list of everything that's wrong with you and what you need to improve.
The yin yang.
Yeah, but my mom was also very hands-off kind of parenting. You hear these stereotypes of like, Asian families and like a tiger mom. My mom was not that. Partly because she was a hustler and she was busy running her business and she wanted to just make a lot of money because she had 3 kids at the time to feed and take care of, until my stepdad came around and she had my younger brother. So there's 4 of us.
She had quite the experience also. Was this in her mid-20s when she was making the move? And she got raped, and she
was a teenager when this happened. She was a teen.
So she was like 18?
She was like 18 when my brother was born. Yeah.
Oh my God.
So, my mom had kids pretty young. I think I mentioned to you earlier, like the only kid of hers who was planned was my brother, and she had him at 41.
Your youngest.
My youngest brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was 17 when he was born.
This is a very intense lineage.
Yeah,
it's an intense one.
But despite it all,
she became an entrepreneur, and that's really interesting.
She became very successful. She retired at 55.
Yeah.
So she did well for herself.
Damn.
She just had to, get rid of the baggage that was holding her down.
The trauma became the treasure.
Yeah. So, I had a great childhood growing up in a sense that, my mom was pretty hands off because she was busy running her business and she was a good mom. She just wasn't around that much because she was really busy. But, so I started off in the industry when I was 17 years old. I would say my youth was kind of like an Almost Famous, that movie. No, seriously. I was running around with a bunch of like these major rock stars. I was going through to concerts left and right. I was just interviewing these rock stars and getting paid to do it. And when you're in high school and you're getting $100 an article and you do 3 of them a week and you're not paying any bills, it's like I thought I was balling and I was rich and I got into all the parties, all the VIP parties. And that was what segued me and gave me a leg up where I entered the entertainment industry very young.
Yeah. So you were writing.
I wasn't a good writer, but I was blogging. I'd say more so blogging.
Yeah.
Blogging for NAM, the National Association of Music Merchants.
Cool.
Yeah.
And that was getting you really well connected at a young age as well.
Yeah. It got me internships early on when I was still in college and trying to figure out what I wanted to do, even though I already had an idea. So, yeah, it gave me the connections, the early exposure, to the point where by the time I, started seriously interviewing for real jobs out of college, I wasn't really nervous anymore because at that point I've already spoken to, all of my childhood heroes, the biggest rock stars. So I would go in and it's like, yeah, he's the CEO, whatever.
Yep.
So I think it's made me a better person, and it gave me early exposure to the world.
Yeah.
And it helped me have a better understanding of people and to realize that I really love people.
Yep.
And being around them.
Yeah. The better that we can ask people questions and genuinely relate to their journey, the more that they feel comfortable with sharing their wisdoms.
Yeah.
And we learn so much through those relationships. And it's no surprise to me that it's definitely like Joseph in the Coat of Many Colors is the biblical story. The more the pants of many colors, the hair of many colors, the shirt of many colors for you. The many colors signify the ability to be able to take on all of these different complex structures of psyche and be able to play with them and engage them and swap between those costumes. And that fluidity it's a super powerful thing, especially for super connecting, where we'll kind of take this next bit. So how did you end up uncovering that, what your North Star was throughout this process? So this is the earlier foundational days and blogging and getting into entertainment and you have your trajectory into USC as well, but kind of like, walk us through that path of that North Star identification.
Yeah. So I'm from Huntington Beach. So I'd say the early days of my career, I was running around with skaters and punk rockers. I was working at Hurley Corporate, working at Vans, Action Sports, in music marketing at that department, segued into the Agenda Show, which is now this huge thing in the fashion industry, right? And then when I finally did graduate with my undergrad, I was project manager at an entertainment ad agency where I was handling national experiential campaigns for, big studios and lifestyle companies like Fox and Paramount, etc. But then I hated that job, even though it looked sexy on paper, just because this was the dead of the recession. And I felt like I was working the job of 3 people and being underpaid. And I think my mom was secretly happy about it because she would say, "Oh, you hate your job? Oh, that's great. Maybe you should go to grad school." She's always been trying to get me to go to grad school. And I just thought, no, I don't really want to go to grad school. I was tired of school. But then it got to the point where I'm like, you know what? I could use an extended adolescence. What am I doing? We're in the recession. I don't like this job. Let me just apply to USC. And if I get in, I'll go. If I don't, then I'll just find another job, right? Because I'm kind of doing that anyways. I got into USC. And I got my graduate degree in entertainment marketing communications management. Had an amazing time there. Created a startup that went viral there that inspired an entire episode of The Big Bang Theory and, got me a lot of press. And it accidentally went viral because it was actually a fake marketing plan, school project. And my partner and I decided to, let's just buy some, spend $50. We'll put something out on Twitter. We'll go to Comic-Con. We'll beta test it for the class. It's a project, right? It's a huge project. It took up a huge chunk of our grade, which is why we took it seriously. And the next morning, I get a call from Fox. Can we interview you? It ended up being like a 1.5-minute segment. And then from there, it was ABC, NBC, CNN, BBC, followed suit. So then it became a thing. So then I thought, okay, I guess we'll make it into a real business. I mean, it went viral. Screw it. Maybe this is a sign. So I ran with that for a while, and it was a lot of fun. But to be honest with you, it just wasn't my passion. It was just this fun thing at the time, and I was still a student, and I had all these other opportunities.
Can you give us a quick idea of what it was?
Yeah, it was called Line Angel. So it was like the Uber of not wanting to wait in line. So you could be in 2 places at once and save time. So a lot of our clients were celebrities or just movers and shakers in LA. They wanted the latest sneakers, whether that was Yeezys or it was people were using it for fashion, sample sales, launches, celebrity meet and greets, concerts so they could have good seating. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
And
it was a blast.
General idea is somebody of a higher wealth that wants to not wait in line will pay somebody to wait in line for them, and then they will go and take the spot once they get to the line. Yeah, or they'll go and actually purchase the item, or if they're waiting in line, for them and stuff like that. Yeah, I
am proud of the fact that I created jobs, and it helped a lot of people. Yeah. That was fun. But
you solved a problem. That's ultimately what the entrepreneur is you found that niche, you solved the problem. Yeah.
Solved the problem. Exactly. There was a niche, right? Yep. And it was just funny how that came about. But I did learn a lot about it. Consumers, I think it was the baseline for a lot of things that I've learned about communication and just engaging with, different demographics of people that I've carried on to the social impact work that I did in politics and, at USC through the Annenberg Innovation Lab. For the past 1.5 years, I've been heavily involved in working on the census. So I would say that I'm at the intersection of civic engagement and entertainment. I connect Hollywood to politics and vice versa. I'll work with celebrities, influencers, YouTubers to help them craft the message that's authentic to their brand. And we'll talk about civic engagement topics such as the census. And not a lot of people know about the census and why it's so important because it happens every 10 years. Mm-hmm. But, especially for communities of color, it's funding for every person counted. It's $20,000 goes into your community over the course of 10 years. Mm-hmm. So let's say there's a building in Koreatown and they're not being counted. That could be millions of dollars that your community is losing, right? Mm. It also determines congressional seating, which make up the Electoral College. A reason why the current administration was trying to suppress the census so much was because they were trying to take away congressional seats from the blue states. such as New York and California, so that we have a weaker vote. So there was a lot at stake with the census, and there was a lot of misinformation because certain groups didn't want communities of color to be counted because that equals power, money, and representation. So there was a lot that I was doing to combat that. And I worked with some amazing, influential celebrities and stars, like, that were big in the Gen Z space, like Sky Jackson, who's a huge Disney star, and she's on Dancing with the Stars now. And I think she has like 7 million followers on IG. People like that.
And so this is super interesting. So there's every 10 years, it's since, when did this start? Was it like the late 1800s, right?
I think so.
The census. So this is important for, let's list okay, so congressional districts.
Yes.
And also taxpayer, funding.
So we pay taxes, right? It's like, I think it's like $800 billion that the government has of like taxes. So it's like the census determines where the tax money goes. That's just the military
budget.
That's crazy.
That's
right?
just the military budget yearly. Yeah,
that's wild.
800 billion. Yeah, it's like $4.5 trillion or something.
Oh my gosh!
That.
Yeah, it's extreme.
And then it's like 28 trillion in debt. I know, it's very very.
The numbers are insane, but the census determines where the tax dollars go, and it's based on population. So if you don't fill out the census, if your household doesn't fill out the census, then your community loses the funding. And
this $20,000
per person
over 10 years.
Over 10 years. So schools.
Okay. So $2,000 a year is going to schools.
Literally in your community.
In your community, you're missing $2,000 a year if you don't fill out the census and say that, hey, we had a birth of a baby. There's now.
Yeah.
Type
but
thing.
Obviously the census passed, but it was a big thing, as you know, this year. It was in the media a lot. And hopefully people filled it out. But, I'm just putting the information out there that the next 10 years from now, fill out your census.
Well, the idea that we were talking about before we went live is that we now have the technological infrastructure that's getting more and more closer to Star Trek and further away from chimpanzees. And so we need to go more and more towards what is cryptography, what is leveraging the smartphones. And like the whole idea is that, if I'm already born in a hospital and I'm already accounted for in the Social Security system, there I am in the census. Okay, now I move to a different area. I have GPS location on my Google Maps, on my iPhone. There's so many ways to register, like, Alan's now registered in the United States Postal Service at this address. He's been living there 3 years, so this is where his census data is right now. There's so many ways to do data fusion to enable this, so we're not sending a sheet of paper.
I agree.
Yeah.
But it's so antiquated the way they do things.
This is very important, though. Like you're describing, this is a crucial statistic. $2,000 a year is a lot of money. And one more time on the investments. Is this also for things like roads and bridges?
Roads. Well, you think about COVID.
Libraries.
I'll give you an example. COVID, right? Let's say we have a vaccine. They got to figure out where to distribute the vaccine. They also look at census data. There's an emergency. It's like, okay, do we have enough shelters? There's things that they create in place. Amazon wants to build a warehouse somewhere, for example. They look at census data. So businesses use it too to figure out business moves. But from a governmental perspective, it's about funding, representation, and power. And if you don't fill it out, you essentially give all of that away.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. So moving forward in the future, funding, representation, and power fused with technology can more easily identify where people are living. Yeah.
Let's hope we get to that point where,
we need to architect that. We need to build it. We need to build it. We need to focus on that. Yeah. There's a lot of other data points to fuse besides the census data, like the psychometric data, the biometric data. So you want to be able to predict a pathology that's developing in your body prior to it actually emerging. That's the health, that's the sick care system that we go to today. And we want the healthcare system where I can feel like an 18-year-old basically the rest of my life,
Yeah.
that peak capacity of my body. And same thing with psychometrics, you know, like right now, Evan was like our machine learning algorithm. Evan Bliss was like, I know that Jeanette Nguyen and Alan Sakian are going to relate well, so I'm going to link them up, and then we do, right?
Yeah.
But based on our psychometrics, based on our levels of extroversion and openness and creativity and all these types of things, you know, the ML algo can just set up you and I on a FaceTime call for, you know, 3:00 p.m. on Tuesday, and then you and I jump on that call based on literally our psychometric data. And so we are already predicting the fact that we are going to vibe and we are going to create a good amount of things together. Yeah. And so, you know, either one of us can look into that. If it looks like something that might have been a mistake, we can always decline it and stuff like that. So, yeah. So there's so much to do in the space of, especially given as important as it is to have representation and power. And
the issue is there's groups who don't want that, so they're going to fight against that. Hence the large amounts of misinformation that have been going on about what it means to fill out the census, for example. No, ICE is going to go knock on your door, don't do it. You know, stuff like that, which is why it was such an issue and why it was actually a really tough campaign, because of all the bots and the misinformation about trying to scare people to not be counted. Similar to voter suppression.
Wow.
There's a lot of parallels. And that's something I've been trying to combat too, you know, especially with the last election, was a lot of voter suppression work. It's really creating targeted pieces of media aimed towards very specific communities to get them to vote. And that was something I did in politics. Gosh, I probably produced over 20 PSAs within the last year, you know, about the census and about voting.
Wow. Yeah. So maybe walk us through what it looks like for a team to create a PSA and a public service announcement, and where does the funding come from for the team? You know, how does the team work together? What platforms does it disseminate? How do you leverage the influencers for more reach? Yeah,
well, the census PSAs, we got a grant from the Gates Foundation.
Okay.
Thanks, Bill Gates.
Bill and Melinda.
Yep.
They're in a lot of interesting places.
They really are.
Yeah.
They're omnipresent. They're everywhere.
Yeah. And also, just for those that, you know, that really tend to kind of jump into like a binary thought process about people like Bill Gates or Jeff Bezos and Melinda Gates and rock star sort of, you know, billionaire Fortune 500 people, that everyone's a mix of, there's good and bad in all of us, and that it's not a binary thing. It's just so quickly that people jump to sort of binary, like this person is evil, this person is good, and like that's the way that I see the world. And it's like, no, we're mixes of both. We all have shadows. We all have gifts. We have to do our best to work on integrating the shadows. But also, people just like for example, I know so many people that have never even researched the depths of like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation's impacts across the planet in terms of actualizing the Sustainable Development Goals, and then they'll have a binary perspective about it being horrible.
Based off tabloid gossip or something silly.
Based off like tabloid gossip stuff, yeah.
Because that's the stuff that people remember, and that's the juicy stuff. You know, people gravitate towards bad news.
People don't want to do the work, which is, you know, like Bill and Melinda Gates would do something like analyze the amount of people on the planet that are using pit latrines. Yeah. And that, you know, because here we're hedonically adapted to being able to open up the tap and get water and to go to the bathroom and flush our toilet and completely not care about any of the wastewater treatment that has to happen. And that in other places in the world, 1 billion people across the planet still having to, you know, go and use these holes that are dug up in the ground to go and urinate and poo in, and that then you get the flies that go and land on that and then fly back over on the food sources. Then you eat those and you get diarrhea, and that you die. And that there's just all of this sort of, it's all it's all, you have to look for it. You have to look for the patterns in how to optimize the basic needs being met of people around the planet so that they can bring their gifts forward. And that's what I think people, in a sense, I think people, they don't want to do the hard work of analyzing that pattern and also admitting that other people that are smarter than them have more resources and that have analyzed those patterns, that they have went and done that process. And people sometimes just don't want to say that that is happening, so then they go off that tabloid gossip stuff. Little tangent, but I wanted to say that because
it's important.
They funded the PSAs and that the census PSAs, and that there's just, it is very, very important. People will look at Jeff Bezos and they won't even take into account the fact that 20 years ago, the guy was literally driving packages himself to the post office to ship, and that he was hoping to one day buy a forklift. This is his story. This is literally his story, right? And that, now there's investments into Blue Origin for space. There's investments into nuclear fusion industry as well for clean and sustainable sources of energy, abundant sources of energy for us. And so it's get away from binary, one-dimensional thinking and dive into the depths of people at their most complex, whether it be somebody just like you and I, or whether it be somebody that is in a position of having $1 billion in a position of power.
Right.
But analyze how they got there, if it was ethical. All these types of things are important. But all right, just wanted to.
No, it was so important though.
Okay.
It was.
Okay.
I'm glad you made that point. Yeah,
Thank
the
you.
issue is we live in an on-demand culture where people like to be spoon-fed information. So most people just aren't going to dig, and I think part of the reason is the way society is constructed, where most people are literally on a hamster wheel, just trying to survive, especially nowadays. So it's a form of privilege even to be able to sit down and research and do deep dives, right? When you're not on survival mode, people are just on a hamster wheel. So I think until the foundation of that is fixed, we're going to have this issue in society.
Interesting. So I like your perspective there. We'll get to the PSA. Just that the idea is that the more that you're on a hamster wheel, the less you're able to research the multivariability in the complexity of the nuance of all of these subjects and try and find the pattern out of all of those variables, rather than being, just because you're on the hamster wheel, spoon-fed one article, retweeting or whatever.
Exactly. The quick bites of information, the sensationalism, right? So it's you need to have the time to research, but better than that, it's do you even know how to effectively research?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
do you even have the educational background to do that? And a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't know how to vet misinformation from quality, authentic information. Right? They don't know what to look for. They don't know what's a viable source, hence why we're in the mess that we are now. There's just a lot of foundational things that completely need to be fixed. You could tell someone, if only you just did your research, but where do they have the time to do the research when they are constantly working and they have 3 kids they have to raise and a life that they want to live, and they need me time too, and right? And this is average families, I'd say, across the board.
Yeah.
Most people do not have the time or the mental space.
And we were talking a lot before we started about the enabling the architectures, the inclusive stakeholding, all these different protocols that biomimic the mycorrhizal networks, and that in doing so, what you do is you meet the basic needs so that people aren't on the hamster wheels as much, and so they can then do things like learn, upskill, and so that they can learn how to do the phenomenon of researching from multiple sources and trying to find synthesis, right? So it's a lot more. I don't know if there's actually anything that's as important as meeting the basic needs and then upskilling people to be able to see the complexity in the patterns that exist, because that will enable a more robust social fabric, democracy, all of those things. And let's go through the, so there's a grant from the Bill and Melinda Gates
that went through the
yeah.
USC Annenberg Innovation Lab.
Okay.
So that funded a lot of our, pretty much all of our census work. No, it was that and the MacArthur Foundation.
Okay.
Funded our census work. So that's what I was doing on the census side. And then a lot of the election and voting work that I was doing was...
Are we going to break down a PSA as well?
The PSAs?
Are we going to break down a PSA?
We can
for
break down
consensus?
the PSAs.
I'm just curious, like, how many people were on, like, the PSA team? Like, it's kind of interesting to me to, like, know, you know, you got an influencer, you drafted some sort of a campaign, you know, you put 20 of them out.
Well, not at the same time.
At different
goodness.
times,
Yeah.
yes.
So, you know, I have a background in Hollywood, used to being around talent and celebrities. So I know how to communicate to management and PR, right? So I was able to get, you know, pretty big stars involved, pro bono, because they knew that it was a great cause and it also aligned with their brand and their vision of where their career was going. So, you know, the celebrities and the YouTubers I got were activists, and they cared about activism and social good. So usually what happens is, okay, we have this idea, we want to do PSAs, right? Then you get the script. So we get writers. We try to get people in the space who know about, for example, census, know about voting.
Yeah.
And then sometimes it's like a collaboration between experts and writers and, you know, feeding them information. And they try to write something quick, concise, clever, entertaining.
Yep.
Then I start casting.
Okay.
I do the castings,
Yep.
right? And, you know, and I'm mindful of like representation and
Yep.
all that great stuff. I'm not a professional caster or casting agent, but I've done it a bunch. And and then it's like, you know, certain people from my team will pull together the technicalities of it, like who's going to handle the editing and the production and the director and all of that. And it's just like a team, you know, like a little mini Hollywood that goes on. There's a lot of moving parts. We all kind of focus on what we need to do and we make it happen. And then after that, you know, there's distribution. That's a whole nother beast, right?
Yes. Yep.
And then it's figuring out distribution. And, you know, luckily we have a lot of community partners and educational institutions already intact through the USC Annenberg Innovation Lab. You know, our brand name recognition and who we are in the community helps to amplify, you know, those messages. And hence why we also use celebrities with big followings, because they have an audience too.
Yep.
And it kind of spiral and goes from there, and it grows.
Yeah. I like how you described it as a mini Hollywood.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
It's like a mini Hollywood. It's not like a blockbuster,
Yep.
but it's like a core team. Everyone has their part, and we make magic happen with a much limited budget.
Yeah. That was a really cool breakdown. Okay. And then you were going into another subject as well when I asked you to do the PSA.
Yeah. I mean, the PSAs, and then I was doing a lot of work with the election and trying to rally people to get them excited about voting. I did a huge event in Hollywood. I think it was it was like a month before shutdown of the pandemic.
Is this also with USC Annenberg?
No, this was through
different.
a different institution that I met while doing a lot of work with the census.
Okay.
I was working with a bunch of politicos.
Okay.
Like people, you know, pretty high up there in the political space, and they needed my help, and we started doing community events, and we had politicians show up, local politicians, local activists, celebrities, and we threw a massive party. You know, food and beverages and alcohol, everything was taken care of. And we registered people to vote on site. We educated them about it. We had, who did we have? Fiona Ma, I think California Treasurer was there.
Mm-hmm.
We had Mitchell Farrell. Some local politicians. There was a bunch. I don't remember. And there was all these judges.
Yep.
Who were there.
So registering people to vote is the core part of producing these events.
Yeah, the core part. Now, I don't have a background in politics. My background's more so in entertainment.
Yeah.
So, and I think it's helped me because I'm not coming at everything through a political lens all the time.
Yes. You're bringing more innovation and strategy. To the
Yeah,
mix.
and and I feel that way. So oftentimes I'm around these big wig judges and politicians, and I don't really, know like everything about them.
Oh yeah.
So it helps.
Yeah.
It makes it more fun and exciting for me too.
Yeah, I feel like then you're learning from one another. Yeah.
Exactly. Also, yeah, I was doing a lot of events to get people to vote, producing PSAs. Oh gosh, there was so much that I was doing. I was traveling on the Biden campaign. I was precinct captain for Biden in Iowa and in Nevada. Won every precinct that I led. And Iowa was crazy.
Wow.
The fact that we won that was insane. But his administration really liked me because I was able to win these precincts, And so because of that, I kept having more opportunities to do some more work with the Biden campaign. And I was in Miami canvassing and helping with this big Voto Latino event.
So we have some images that I'm going to pull up as well. And so we have, what's the title again called of the position? It's like a precinct leader? Like
Precinct captain.
Precinct captain.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was doing that.
And so now this is like, the idea is that once you kind of identify with whatever, I personally really like right now what's going on with like the Independent National Union, right? So I really like the idea of like what's happening with the independent scene right now and trying to like grab the best from both conservatives and liberals and bring those up together into one. But so what happens then is once you pick kind of who you really like if you do like the INU and stuff like that, your ideas is that you can get involved and become a precinct captain for them, and then you basically go and travel to the swing states, mostly are the important ones right now, and that you're going and traveling and you're trying to basically educate about the principles that the people that they will be voting for represent.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the idea is as you go to the different locations is that you're kind of doing the work. You're trying to basically replicate, in a sense, the ethos or ideas, the memes of the people. So it's like kind of like trying to clone as much of the ideas as possible. And that's kind of what maybe a precinct captain could be thought of as.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. And so Iowa was the first place.
Iowa was the first place. They were very racist there. I didn't have a good time and it was cold. But I did what I needed to do, and I won. So I was happy about that.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, that's really close to my, because I'm from South Dakota, and so.
Look at all those great photos.
Let's see.
Oh, there I am.
All right, so we have some pictures to show you.
I'm actually in the latest issue of Time magazine with Biden. There's this picture. There's this huge spread of him hugging this politician, and you clearly see me in the background too.
So that's you and Biden.
Yeah.
You said you were in a Time.
I'm in Time. I'm in the recent
You're
issue of Time. Yeah.
That's fucking
My
dope.
boss sent it to me and said, "You're in Time magazine." I said, "What?" And she sent me a photo of it, which I thought was funny.
Wow.
I have yet to pick up the physical issue. That's with the press in Iowa. Do you remember how much of a shit show Iowa was? Because they couldn't figure out who won. And it was so messy, that controversy, because I guess the app that was supposed to keep score was completely messed up, and it became like this Democratic embarrassment. Iowa was insane. It was a great experience.
Again, we spent a couple minutes talking about this earlier, but we kind of have to get away from sheets of paper and feeding those into a machine, and that's a new invention. It used to not, you didn't even have the machine in the past.
They tried to go high tech, and it was a huge mess up.
Well, we need a lot of features.
We need to fix it.
Yeah.
Improve it. That's what it is.
Yeah. And and we're gaining the abilities to do so. As we're talking about things like inclusive stakeholding, we actually have the decentralization protocols that enable the tokenomics of the subjects that we were talking about earlier. But the same thing's true with applied cryptography for voting as well. We now have the proper protocols that enable you to leverage the simple process of using the devices in a way that's even more secure than the existing solutions
Here's the
are.
thing, the Democrats would love to make voting more easily and more accessible. But like I said, there's a huge portion of the population who are trying to suppress the vote consistently. And that's the type of battle that I've been dealing with this type of work.
As long as it's, the idea is that it's just a lot of what I've also understood about what potentially a conservative minded person would say about it is that they just want to make sure that it's safe and that it's properly being executed, and that that's also like it's really actually very psychometrically aligned, like the liberal higher openness and the conservative sort of conscientiousness in ensuring that it's done in a way that is systematically going to, procedurally done through like the NSA, and just done in a way that sort of is ensured that there's not a specific political agenda behind it, but that it leaves it open for the actual democratic process.
I would agree with that, definitely. But there is a large portion who are, to be honest with you, I'm going to be flat out, just freaking racist.
Yeah, it's the old,
they just don't want people of color to vote.
I know, yeah. I mean,
that's the other issue.
We talked about this. I mean, we pulled these up, and I mean, this is where, we try and simplify this as much as possible, but ultimately it really does boil down to things, just like in high level perception and in chapter 4 called Portals, it really does boil down to simple things like people on this like left side of the bell curve that are, really just experiencing states of consciousness that are still a little bit more archaic, things that are a little bit more, racist or bigoted or xenophobic, and also that are like you'd be surprised at how often you have somebody from where I'm from in South Dakota, whereas you were saying in Iowa a little bit earlier, it's like they haven't left the state. Mm-hmm. They don't have a friend that is black, or that's Latin American, or that's Asian, or that's from the Middle East. And so when that happens, it's only propaganda from television that is being inserted into the mind.
Yep,
and then
Facebook
and stuff like that. Yeah. And from social media. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially Facebook.
So in general, the idea of portals is that you basically want to move people further and further up the bell curve to thinking in a way that is more and more multivariate, more and more as a genius visionary, as an entrepreneur, as an artist, as a leader, as someone that's able to calculate as many of the variables as possible, someone that's able to shoot a portal, like a code update into the center of the pacer. Like you have to become, in a sense, an entrepreneur, an artist, and deploy some sort of a project into the world that helps people, right? That's why you like really like such a massive thing that we have to do in the process is we have to do this sort of, you have to do the process of uplifting people along the journey. This isn't to say, we talked about this for a couple of minutes earlier, but we have to help the labor force upskilling process. We have to extend the hand out and help people come through. Like you can't just say that somebody is old consciousness and they need to die. Like let the, at the same time, the 80-year-old old white guy in the country club that still has experiences of not liking black people or Asian people or Middle Eastern people or Latin Americans is dying anyway. But there are people that are maybe 40 or 30 that have one friend that is black or Latin American or whatever, and that they're becoming more open. They're realizing that maybe I should understand what it means to have friends from other places in the world and what that would mean for my overall perspective. And we need to uplift and help in that process.
I absolutely agree. But deeper than that, I think that, if you look at these stats, it's like, I think, what is it, like 54% of white women voted for Trump. So these are women who were crying about Ginsburg dying, had a black square on their IG, you know what I mean, in solidarity, with Black Lives Matter. But they're going to vote what they feel is going to be in their best interest. And I think it's to uphold white supremacy. I think a lot of times, because I know people, and I actually have friends who voted for Trump, who we got, kind of in at it because, I'm on the Biden campaign, right? Who are very nice people, have friends of all different cultures. But at the end of the day, they want to maintain white supremacy because they feel like it benefits them. And I think it's like the selfish type of mentality. So it's very complicated, Alan. It's.
I definitely have some points of deep agreement with that. And the way that I came to these ideas is literally through the study of consciousness. I really take this from a pattern recognition perspective about the entirety of the whole reality that we're a part of and what we're undergoing. It's a very deeply evolutionary process, and it is consciousness as the fundamental unit that we're talking about in this evolution. So I do recognize and understand the things that are being voiced about these old ideas and these old codes that are dying and that are being archived, and that, but at the same time that there is also simultaneously a process of people that are there is that arm that's kind of reaching up, or there's like that pull up that's about to happen to that like next like level of perception, and that all we need is that little meme or that little bump, that little friendship with someone that is from a different walk of life. And that little tiny thing upgrades somebody to a new way of seeing things. I remember this is I love experiential stories because they also really get this. It takes the abstract philosophical pattern level is really important, but so is the grounded one in the flesh, in the body experientially. I remember after I went from Sioux Falls, South Dakota, where I grew up from 0 to 17, to Minneapolis, Minnesota, right? So Minneapolis, Minnesota is a massive step in like the liberal melting pot culturally direction.
You have that great mall that I've been to.
The Mall of America. You know the Mall of America.
Of course
you
That's
do.
the only place I've ever gone through there. I had a layover.
Yeah. You're like, I have to go to the Mall of America.
I went to the Mall of America.
Where are my top pieces of fashion for me to look at
let's
here?
go get Guccified.
Yeah. And that was a massive perceptual augmentation because I literally had on my dorm floor at the University of Minnesota, I had Latin American friends, I had black friends, I had friends from so many different unique walks of life on my floor. And that's exactly what I needed in order for me to realize the truth of the love and the familial roots and the basic needs of water, food, shelter, electricity, education, healthcare, these basic needs. Every seed needs the basic nutrients as a tree or as a human to blossom fruits. And that we come from the uniqueness of, I didn't really get this one until 10 years later. 10 years later, I started understanding this. About 28 years old, I started really getting that consciousness is a lot like calculus in the sense of the integration of 8 billion perspectives, 8 billion infinitesimal data points integrated into a unity style perspective about what we're undergoing as a reality. And at the same time, seeing that genetically as our 99.9% DNA similarity as humans. And then the derivative, the differentiation in calculus, is how the the individual, the seeds get the basic need nutrients, but the gifts, the artistic contributions are different.
Yeah.
I host a show. I interview people. There are other people that do so many different kinds of beautiful contributory gifts. And that, on a genetic perspective, is 0.1% DNA difference.
Yes.
And so this sort of, I didn't have that when I was 18. If I had that when I was 18, I could have more quickly ramped myself up. And that's what I'm trying to do for myself. That's really what we kind of try and do for, we're basically trying to say, we're trying to be the mentor that we never had.
Yeah, in our own space, in our own way.
Yeah.
Exactly. Without even realizing it sometimes.
Yeah.
It's very subconscious, right? And I think as human beings, like, there is this innate need to give and to influence and to do good.
Yes.
And hopefully, we can.
Yeah, I'm really bullish on taking this from a perspective of consciousness, because if we identify sort of on that kind of, we were talking about a very like psychometric level of like a conservative and a liberal in the United States, or as somebody that has a friend that is from a different walk of life versus that doesn't, we can kind of begin understanding on a data level what's going on in people's worldviews, and then where they're at on this consciousness evolutionary trajectory.
Right.
And this is the thing, is that the more that we identify where people are at, we've actually visualized the data, and it's not speculative anymore. Mm-hmm. And this is why the ad targeting is so successful, is because you visualize the psychometric data.
Absolutely.
You know the demographics, you know the psychometrics, you know their ocean scores and personality traits. And so, with a couple hundred likes, you can know someone better than their spouse.
Yeah.
And this is really interesting when you can potentially leverage that data for awakening, for enlightenment, for why don't we introduce you to one of the planetary mystic traditions, or why don't we introduce you to somebody that is studying cryptocurrencies or blockchain technologies or biotech or neurotech, because maybe if you get a little trigger point into how beautiful, you had that picture of the cell earlier.
Oh, that I sent you? It's the latest model of a cell.
Yeah, it's such a good picture. Let me get it up for us.
I was telling Alan how I wanted it as a print on a dress. How beautiful would it be with some shiny sequin and, beading? So runway ready. Yes,
that's right. So we both want to put this on clothing. We will co-create that.
It could be fun.
And that the more that we put this on a piece of clothing, and the more that people walk around and that get stopped and ask, hey, what is that? And then the other person responds and says, it's the inner life of the cell. Yeah. And then that other person goes, wait, what? And then there's a conversation that struck up about how beautiful it is. I was telling you that it was David Belinsky's, for the first one, that introduced me to the beauty of doing the illustration and animation of what the inner life of the cell looked like. Mm-hmm. And then he inspired millions of people around the world that saw that precious video. It's called The Inner Life of the Cell, everyone that wants to look it up. And that, look at how much further, though, because you saw the quality of those animations and stuff. We're getting to a level where you can actually see, like, we're beginning to color code and tag parts of the cell at the level of what are called nucleotides or sugars or lipids and amino acids. And these sort of proteins, we're really getting down to a super high resolution level that is hopefully we can leverage this to, like, imagine if we took this and started putting this into the Twitter and the Facebook and the Instagram feeds as something that was like, this is inside your cells. Like, this is what makes you run and operate,
Yeah. And I mean, we could create a whole narrative and campaign around that makes it exciting and connects with people on a deeper molecular level, no pun intended.
Yeah.
Because I'm already in my head, I'm thinking, oh, it would be a really cool campaign, and we can incorporate all of this crazy technology and VR into
Yeah.
like the runway show. But I'm just going off on a tangent right now.
I love that. See,
I'm a creative, so
Yeah, me too. I'm all about this kind of stuff, and the scientific communities, especially the SciComm communities, that a lot of my lineage comes kind of from the Carl Sagan and Neil deGrasse Tyson that I was telling you about a little bit before we started, and the intention is to really package in as much of an explain like I'm five ability the profound beauty of what's actually in the scientific realm like this, and then we can leverage the entertainment. This is exactly what we started the conversation off with on the show.
yeah.
We can leverage the mimetic capacities of the entertainment sector here to do that.
Yeah.
We can get the TikTok influencers that become so in awe about, we have to tell the story to them that makes them excited about the inner life of
But
the
then
self.
they have to understand how to communicate it to their own language to speak to their audience, because we want to get it to the masses. I mentioned earlier, I was working on the census. That's not a cool topic. It's really boring. How do I make it exciting? How do I explain it to people so that they understand? I have to communicate to the masses about that, right? So that's another layer that I have to think about. I can't explain the census to someone like a colleague, who I went to grad school with. I have to talk to, that 19-year-old in the inner city who has influence with, in their household, who can tell their mom or their dad, hey, fill out the census. This is why it's important. So there's all these other layers that I have to think about when it comes to communicating and what that means and like how to, right?
Yeah. And actually the most successful creative campaigns in Los Angeles are usually the ones where the brand that's doing a partnership with the content creator, they give the content creator full creative capacity.
Absolutely.
That's the most success that you can experience.
It's all about the authenticity.
Yeah. And I also like using Sri Aurobindo and the Mother Mira Alfasa's words. They call it soul angle. You let the content creator add their soul angle to what the dissemination is of what the brand is aiming at achieving. And when they do that, then it's authentic. And that's so we will do this. You guys, you will see more and more of this style of leveraging the entertainment industry here. Jeanette, Allen will be working more and more to get Hollywood to, in a sense, marry the profundity of science and of enlightenment and awakening and consciousness evolution and these types of things. So let's go. We have some more. I want to showcase some more. There's a lot of them in here, but let's because I don't think enough people actually get to go through this process of looking at what it's like to be a precinct captain.
It was a lot of work.
Yeah. So Iowa, you guys did Iowa.
We did Iowa. We did Nevada.
Okay. Yep. That's what the
And
state.
we
on the
campaigned in Florida.
That's right. You were in Miami.
Yeah, but I was also doing some get out the vote stuff in LA.
Let's see. Okay. Let's see. We'll flip through some more.
Well, that was something I did. I was a speaker. This was during the height of COVID for I think it was NBC Universal.
Okay.
I think. Yeah, I was visiting on behalf of USC Annenberg Innovation Lab. So that was just a flyer that I was a featured speaker.
Learn about the 2020 census and how to make your voice count.
Yeah, I was educating employees about that. So I did that a few times. I also,
Oh, for the Microsoft Teams webinar, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
I'm like, we're trying to remember.
Yeah,
Like, was that?
you're like, I've done this.
I've done a lot of speaker engagement work. So I've done that for Fox and some other companies as well.
Yeah.
Like media companies.
Yeah. Interesting.
That was outside of a rally in Nevada for the Biden campaign. That particular shot.
Yeah, there you go. Just so your head's in the frame.
Yeah. And I loved it just because there was a rainbow in the background, and I saw it as, oh, I think this is a positive sign. I think he's going to win. And it's not loading. We'll see. Technology. Sometimes that happens.
We're coming, fam.
Yeah.
We're coming. Hold up.
Oh, that was Miami. It was very, very hot and humid that day.
Again, look at that outfit.
Isn't it fun?
Super unique.
The whole thing is vintage. Almost.
Wow.
It was Miami. I had to be fun and colorful. It was a party. It's a very festive city. I love Miami. That was at the Biden campaign office in Nevada.
Okay.
I remember that really well, yeah.
It's so interesting again that these precinct captains are like the mimetic like arm and like clones of the reach. I find that to be so interesting.
That was on set of one of the PSAs.
Uh-huh. Okay.
We were filming during COVID, hence the mask and the strict SAG protocol. Oh, that's Sky Jackson. She's a huge Disney star. Teenagers love her. She's sassy. She's fun. Huge star.
She local?
I think so. I mean, she lives in LA. She's on Dancing with the Stars now.
We should get Sky on the show. I want to get to this younger consciousness and get them to think about what the nature of reality is. Excited for that.
That was a DNC event. You could see Garcetti in the background. Right next to my head.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a few photos, you know. I like to document things because I like to send my mother photos.
Yeah, moms are big fans of seeing what
they love photos.
They love it,
yeah, when I send her a photo.
Look at what my kid is doing.
Oh, that was I was with LAUSD, and we were learning. I think it was like a workshop on we were trying to teach teachers how to teach the census to their students. That's what it was.
Interesting. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So more again of the teaching other people about the census so they can teach other people.
Yes,
it's
exactly.
Such an interesting way to view memes. It's so interesting.
That was on set of a PSA.
I see. So this is what the set looks like to where you guys
one
are
of
doing.
them.
The little mini Hollywood of got it.
Yeah, that's one of them, definitely.
Yeah, okay.
So that was an event I did on behalf of the LGBTQ community. Urban Outfitters donated their event space to us, and it just became this big party. We had performers, we had incredible artists.
So Urban Outfitters got involved with the census project as well.
They were happy to give me a platform to talk about the census.
Okay, yeah. So they got involved by giving you a space.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
A space, and they supported the marketing and the outreach. That was with Pelosi. It was a brunch and briefing.
Oh,
that
Pelosi.
that was in Brentwood. It was at the home of the founder or the creator of the Despicable Me franchise.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
That was a lot of fun because I had no sleep that night. I actually came from USC teaching a Saturday workshop to high school students, junior high and high school students. But the night before, I think I had like 3 hours of sleep because I was at this insane party on the Hollywood Hills with all these politicians. So it was like one after another. Yeah. I just remember being dead tired in that photo, but I didn't look tired.
Yeah. Yeah, you kept it together.
I kept it together.
You did.
Definitely. Oh, and then I had my birthday party after that.
That's a pretty interesting series of events, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool.
That was also on set. We did this whole media press blitz thing called Vote House, where there's a studio who my friends own in downtown LA. It's gorgeous. It's called Tuxedo. And we had just celebrities and influencers and all the who's who's in the industry and politicians. They came. We talked about the importance of voting. We just created bite-sized content and just distributed it on social media to get people really excited about voting like a week prior to it actually happening.
Yep.
So that was a huge media event, that last photo.
Yep.
So I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh, I've done all these things that I completely forgot about. It's a good thing I took photos.
Yeah, it's also good to get into the positions where instead of being behind a screen and sort of trying to analyze what the life of Donald Trump or Joe Biden or Nancy Pelosi or Mark Zuckerberg or Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk or whoever the people are that you're talking about, is to actually achieve enough in your life to where you get the opportunity to actually engage with them in person, and then make an educated experience of an in-person relationship for you to gain that data point.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because like there's a lot of things about Biden that I think are inaccurate. Like they say things like, oh, he's Sleepy Joe, or he like has a bad memory. That's not true. He's really, really sharp. Look, he has a stutter and he gets nervous when he talks in front of that many people. So sometimes he forgets, and he's literally nervous. He doesn't tell you that, but he's nervous, you know. But look, he knows foreign policy better than anybody. He's really sharp one-on-one. He has a spectacular, very intelligent team. And I think part of quality leadership is knowing, you know, who to vet to be on your team. So, I mean, it was after that experience where I'm like, okay, I'll support him. Because I was iffy, you know, I'll admit. Like, I wasn't sure if that was like the best candidate. But after that experience, you know, I'm definitely Team Biden-Harris for sure.
Yeah, to me, there's no clearer solution than what I outline in the sorting algorithm, which is chapter 7 of High Level Perception. I mean, this is by far the only solution that I see, because there's nothing better than taking the best possible codes from conservatives, taking the best possible codes from liberals, and synthesizing them into a unity, and drain the dirty bathwater as well, because there is dirty bathwater. There's perverse incentives, and there's
on both sides.
On both sides.
Yeah, they're
on
both.
Both sides.
There's both good and bad.
Exactly.
But sometimes one side has more bad than others. But there is good and bad on both sides.
and another one to put into the same style framework is, you know, Hollywood and Silicon Valley. We have our dirty waters that need to be drained, but we also have, you know, California's the 6th largest economy in the world.
5th, actually, we moved up
as a
since last
state.
year.
Yeah, and that would mean we beat the UK.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they're 5th.
There we go.
Yeah.
Well, we're 5th now.
Yeah, so it'd be UK 5, Germany 4, Japan 3, China 2, USA 1, and so that's interesting that we beat the UK. Yeah, so it's probably a little more than probably 3.3 or so $trillion or something like that, I think.
Look at you.
Yeah, that's because
facts.
These statistics I got familiar with them. That's an important one to understand, because you kind of want to know where people are living and how they're contributing to the economies of the planet. Mm-hmm. And there's many statistics that we need to analyze beyond GDP, but that's definitely an important one, like enlightenment and human flourishing, human well-being, these types of statistics, happiness, joy, bliss, basic needs being met, this type of stuff. But another one in this is the USA and China. You need to take the good things from the USA, the good things from China, and synthesize them into a single one, drain the dirty bathwater. Another one is indigeneity and modernity. You can put those in the equation. You can put science and spirituality into the equation. You know, science has perverse incentives, spirituality has dogmas and fundamentalism, but science has the beautiful scientific method. And spirituality has the beautiful manifestations of the divine. And if you put those two things together, you know, a scientist will tell you that when they found and colored that inner life of the cell that way, that's divine. That's a beautiful, just truth, good, beauty, divinity right there. And then the same thing's true about spirituality. When the spiritual person learns that their 20,000 breaths that they take a day come from the photosynthesis of phytoplankton in trees, that's gorgeously synthetic between the two.
I love how you explained that. So beautifully put.
Yeah, it's like this. Thank you.
I think balance is so important. And I think we do live in a world where people forget that. And it's always black or white.
Yeah.
That way's wrong, my way's right. When really it's much more complicated than that. And I've said it before. I think an extreme isn't good. There needs to be a balance.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the type of perception that when you begin viewing it from the perspective of trying to synthesize the good codes from the two that you're analyzing and draining the dirty bathwater codes, it really does drive a more higher level perception and less of a binary one. It's extremely beautiful. I want to hit a couple other thoughts here with you. You've spent a good amount of time with the USC Annenberg Innovation Lab. I want to know, what else is the Annenberg Innovation Lab really well known for? What should people know about them?
They're always working on all these insane, crazy, innovative projects. I don't even know what's going on most of the time because there's just so many different things going on. It's like this hub. It's like a little city where people are doing all these different things. I wasn't at the Annenberg Innovation Lab every day, so I don't know. I was working everywhere, so I didn't really see what other people are working on. But like, I'll get emails and I'll kind of get like a synopsis of what's going on. And I mean, it varies, you know, each semester with a cohort or...
Oh, they have cohorts every semester.
I think they do.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that they help students with like their different startups and various projects, but they also do a lot of work in the community. Now, I was working with the Annenberg Innovation Lab, not as a student, as like an actual, you know,
person. Are they doing things like entering into mixed reality and stuff like that?
Oh, for sure. Oh, definitely. All that. They've been doing that.
This is kind of interesting stuff because, you know, the Berklee College of Music over in Boston,
course.
yeah, they're really interesting because they're also trying to, you know, blend music production with so many different fields. And I think Annenberg Innovation Lab specifically, by blending together different fields, is going to learn that you can increase the mimetic efficacy at which you disseminate content by doing that blending process.
Yeah, and I mean, USC is doing some amazing innovative work. I had a friend who I think she was part of the Shoah Foundation or something like that, where she was archiving Holocaust survivors in a 3D form. Because a lot of them are so old. So once they pass, it's like you can, and they interact. You could still talk to them and broadcast them so they look like they're in front of you.
Yeah, if we did that to every single one of the 100 billion people that has lived and died before us today, that would be crazy to have like a genealogical lineage of every person that's ever lived.
Right. Their movements, how they sound. You can talk to them.
You can talk to them, yeah.
They're explaining their story to you.
Their story, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
And it's something that they're doing to preserve history.
Oh, yes, this type of stuff I'm all about. I love genealogical anthropology and archaeology. So Annenberg that's interesting. What initiative is that? Do you know what?
This is through a different USC initiative. USC's got so much stuff going on.
So that's another one of our things that we have to do is get the USC peeps to come on and talk about all this stuff.
There's amazing work that they're doing. I mean, I'm a very proud Trojan. I had a lot of fun at USC. Yeah. I met a lot of incredible people, had fantastic professors. So I feel a great connection to them.
Yeah, and it's great because in the Silicon Valley, we had Berkeley and Stanford as kind of our major sources for a lot of the professor style brilliance. In here we're going to have USC, UCLA. Yeah, there's a lot of other incredible places. Caltech, there's JPL, Jet Propulsion Lab, UC Irvine. There's a lot of great places here as well, and a lot more in the Bay Area that I didn't list as well, UCSF. But like we got to get those collegiate peeps onto the program as well. So we'll hone in on that. Now, unpack for us West Hollywood. WeHo, is that right?
I love WeHo. It's like my spot.
WeHo. It's such a funny 4 letters.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I spend a lot of time in
Soho.
WeHo. Great dining, great
That's funny.
shopping, fabulous people.
Yeah, see, I'm not as familiar. So walk us through your love for West Hollywood. That's what WeHo means. And then also, you want to run for mayor at some point in the future.
I mean, later down the road.
Which is
This
exciting.
Not anytime soon. I mean,
Yeah.
I think I'm totally qualified to do it. I'd be great at it. I love that it's rotational, so I have support. You know, I don't need to be, you know, queen bee all the time. I think it's good to collaborate and have different perspectives. But I love WeHo. You know what? I think part of it is I've always been a huge advocate for the LGBTQ community. You know, I was very close to my gunkles growing up. You know, I'd say most of my friends are either gay men or fabulous older women. And, you know, they really took me under their wing. And so, you know, this was something that they brought up. I think you should totally run for mayor one day. It'd be so cool, Jeanette. And I thought, oh, that's cute. Ha, ha, ha. But, you know, as I've gotten older, it kind of became like, oh, it's actually possible. It's a thing. I mean, I have the background for it. I have the love for it. I mean,
Yep.
I care about the community. I'm always doing whatever I can to help them, you know, thrive, to help with their rights, like whatever I can to do to help. You know, I've helped thrown a lot of events on their behalf to raise money for LGBTQ causes. I've, you know, volunteered at a lot of LGBTQ nonprofits. I really feel like I have a deep connection to the community, even though I'm a straight woman, just because it's so personal. You know, they're my friends.
Yeah.
And we're so close, we're so tight. We run in a pack, and I mean, they have so much love for me, so I feel a deep connection to them for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great North Star to get involved at an entrepreneurial, artistic, spiritual level, but also at a political level. All of these levels of involvement are really important to not just be a spectator, but to be an active player.
Yeah, and you know, I would do it. It's not necessarily for me. I mean, I'm always thinking of, well, how can I create positive impact?
Yep.
You know, and empower other people to
Yep.
empower other people,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So, I mean, it's not necessarily about money or fame or anything. I don't care for fame. I mean, I've told you, I've had people try to solicit me to be on reality TV shows. Like, it doesn't necessarily mean I'm interested or want to do it. It's not about fame. And it's not about money, because I can make more money doing other things than being a mayor.
Yep.
That's for sure.
Yep.
I just think that I could, you know, really do some good when the time is right. But I'm also mindful that there's a time and a place when I can make the most impact.
Yep.
And it's not now, but later, definitely.
Yep. Yeah, likewise with the goals that I was sharing with you about the presidency as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a time that's coming when there will be deep architectural change of our social fabric that's more geared towards the inclusive stakeholding and the other things that we're talking about. And I'm, willing to step in. So we're gonna
It'll be fun.
we're gonna have a lot of fun. I know. Let's talk about super connecting, because you're giving me some stories. Obviously, both of us are super connecting, not only people but ideas, and that you gave this really good example that a lot of people don't think about. So you have these nodal clusters of different connections, and with your higher level of extroversion and friendliness and sociability, you kind of have a propensity to gravitate people towards you that are looking to land in community and feel at home.
Yeah, I feel like I get a lot of people who reach out to me when they feel like they lack a connection. And now it doesn't necessarily mean professional. Like, yeah, sure, we all get that, right? Well, some of us do, where it's like, hey, can you hook me up with like this job, or, you know, who do you know at this said company? But I've noticed that whenever there's, you know, within my friend group, if there's someone who just moved to LA from another state, usually they'll funnel them through me, because they know I have the network. I'm going to be open to chatting with them. It's like, and I want to help. Oh, you're new here. Like, how can I help you build your community?
Yes.
And I'll connect them to the right people so that they feel at home.
Yep.
because I think it's so important. And I know for a lot of people, LA can feel very lonely.
Yeah.
Just chatting with some friends I've had who are transplants here. Now, luckily, I've never had that experience. You know, I was born and raised SoCal. I'm from Orange County. It's like an hour drive down south, right? And no traffic. So I've always had a huge support network. So I thought, well, okay, so if I have this massive support network that's very diverse in just all different types of people and all different types of experiences, it's like, why would I not use that to help other people who need it, you know? And it becomes a win-win for everybody.
Yeah. Yes, I would probably say that this is one of the most important things for people to realize about as they become more and more open to new people, open to connecting with diverse leaders across fields, that what happens is that you become more and more of a catalyst and a superhighway and a funnel for other people that go through you as a point to get to where they feel more like they're at home. And that in itself is reason enough to aim to strive more and more for, especially if your psychometrics align with it, if you're not hyper introverted, strive for that. Strive to connect with people across different fields. Strive to connect with people across different walks of life. Strive to visualize your own network and your own sort of data so that you can know where to go with the people that come through you. And be in service to that. Be in service, because like you said, when the person comes to you, you're thinking about being in service to them so that they feel at home. That in a sense, that's kind of what Evan had done a lot for me here.
Same.
Yeah.
You know, I think Evan and I, vice versa with Evan and I. I mean,
Yeah.
he's connected me to people. I've connected him to people. And I think it's great because,
Yes.
you know, I think for some people who don't do that, there's like a form of possessiveness or jealousy, which I just think is silly, or some type of insecurity. But I want all my friends to be friends with my other friends if I know that they can potentially work with each other, just have a good time, or there's something there, right? And I also think it's very essential to have a range of friends in your life, because I don't want all my friends to be like me.
Yeah.
At all, because I need new blood to cancel out the misinformation that I do carry and have, and my biases and my blind spots.
Boom.
And I get that all the time with my diverse friendships.
Likewise.
Where I'll think I know something, but then they challenge that. And then I think, you know what? You have a good point. Do I disagree or do I agree with it? Depends. But at least I know where you're coming from and the other perspective.
I love that.
Right?
That was so good. That was so eloquent. Yep. The blind spots. That's it. Guess what happens when you gain more and more of openness to new angles on issues, because they're coming from other people, because you've cared to be compassionate and empathetic and want to undergo the process of learning about what their angle on it is. All of a sudden you become more and more aware of your blind spots, as long as you're not getting triggered and as long as you're not egotistical.
Yes.
That type of stuff. You have to be willing to go to. It's really difficult to restructure your cognitive schemas, because you're constantly in a battle to, you're really wanting to hold on to them and to those structures.
Yes.
And that's that cognitive dissonance.
Yes. I have a professor who I became friends with. We're very tight. And he'll call me out on everything and anything. And he has no issue doing that. And I love that he does that, because he comes from a good place.
Yeah.
And I take what he
too.
says to heart.
Yep.
And I have no issue with him doing that, because I can't have yes Jeanette people around me all the time.
Amen. Yes. Yes.
There's a lot of them out there.
That's right.
And I appreciate them for
That's
different reasons, but they can't all be like that.
That's the psychometric of agreeableness. And that you really want a good chunk of disagreeability, because you want to be able to say that, hey, I love you, I disagree, but that, or when it's a mentor, that for them to just blatantly just say that you have a blind spot right there, and then
Right.
that,
You're wrong, and here's why.
yeah, and then that one's really interesting. I really, the mentors that have done that for me have been super influential. Mostly it's checking my hubris is mostly what it is. I can definitely get very overly self-confident about, after I published High Level Perception, I had to have a good dose of that in order for me to realize that a lot of the hypotheses that I have about the nature of consciousness and reality are important, but they're also important to retain a deep level of openness, continued openness, and to not, be like, I'm 28 and I know,
Right.
Don't do that. Don't do that, because you don't know. Think about all 8 billion perspectives and all of their angles on what's going on around the planet, and like where we came from, the Big Bang, where we're going, the Godhead, gateway, wherever we're going. Like, think about all of the process of that's going on inside of your body at a cellular level, everything that's happening in math and physics and artificial intelligence. There's just so much to even say.
There's so much information. No one has enough time to be an expert on it all.
Yeah, hubris. Check the hubris. Yeah, I'm so happy that we talked about that. That's huge. I wonder what your take is. What is your take on the nature of consciousness?
My take on the nature of consciousness. I think that it's all about connection. That's what it is. Whether it's object, feelings, person, thing. And that all leads back to the human ego. That's what I think it is. At the end of the day, I think it's just self. But, a higher level of it means it's not just about me, it's about others too. But I think at a low level, it's about connection, which leads back to ego.
Those are really interesting answers. So, let's see. So, when I was at MIT 2 years ago, I was speaking with these PhD mathematicians, and they were walking me through what else is there besides relationships? And so that's the connections. And that it's super interesting because it's the connections, like you said, between the subjective and the objective. And it's also connections between the subjective and their own stories and emotions and feelings and all this type of stuff. And it's connections between the different neurons materially in the brain. And there's all of these sorts of ways to view connections between these two nodes as humans, you and I, between two countries on the planet on the macro level, right? There's so many ways to view that connections as a fundamental piece of consciousness.
Right, or even with an object, right? A piece of artwork, whatever.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it's a very open-ended, interesting question. It's hard to answer. That could be a whole thesis.
Yeah, that's why I took 10 months to aim to hit it with my, with my thoughts and perspective. And I would ask, as a follow-up to that, I would ask, given the fact that you've lived here in Los Angeles, and given the fact that you're at the point of synthesis between entertainment and civic engagement, what do you specifically think about my desire, my drive, my North Star in LA about trying to drive this question about what is the nature of consciousness and reality to the people with the highest influence and clout in the area? What do you think that style of reflective processing for the people with the most influence here will catalyze?
Well, I think it's interesting that you would ask that type of question in LA, first of all, because, it's kind of dense here. Like I feel like LA is a culture of PR. It's pushing the next fragrance, the next TV show, the next book. And it's very much low-hanging fruit, where it's just quickly, clearly, succinctly communicate it to said audience so that they will pay and consume and buy this or that, right? Or move towards some action. But I mean, I'm curious because I would love to, hear what people think about that. I just feel like that's such a high level question. And to be honest with you, LA doesn't value intellectualism like some other markets in the US. It doesn't mean that there aren't intelligent people here. There definitely are. There's a lot of them. They're just not as in the spotlight, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's about the optics. That's LA. It's about the optics and not necessarily so much about the amount of numbers in your bank account. I feel like that's maybe more New York or San Fran. It's more about the numbers with your social media following,
Yep.
with your social media impressions.
Yep.
I was having a conversation with a really close friend of mine about how social media has kind of leveled the playing game, because now you can be in a room with the wealthiest people, with millionaires and billionaires, and you can be, living in like a $1,500 a month apartment, but just because you have the social media clout, you have the followership. So now you're in this room with all of these millionaires and billionaires where, maybe like a decade ago, this would never happen.
Yeah, it enabled.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because, I know tons of people with a lot of social media followers who are struggling financially, but they look like they're popping on Instagram, but they're not.
Yeah.
They probably crashed on my couch at one point.
Yeah.
So I think it's really about the optics here. Not everything is how it seems. It's really the narrative that people put out there and the type of image that they manufacture.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of that for sure. And
Yeah.
I know because I'm behind the scenes of these things.
Yeah. Richard Dawkins calls it the extended phenotype.
Mm-hmm.
So we actually put out a biological signal via our Instagram profile. And when we interpret it that way, it is fascinating because that's why it's at its absolute peak. You want to put only your absolute peak into the social sphere because you're using it as a mating tool.
Mm-hmm.
You're using it as a tool to acquire more wealth and business and friends, and you're using it also to create a story about yourself. It's a really interesting way of perceiving that phenomenon that's occurring. And you're also spot on that medically speaking, it might be more valuable for somebody to have, this would be, I would recommend people to investigate into this. Is it more powerful to have, let's say, $1 billion, or is it more powerful to have 10 million subscribers on YouTube?
It's a good question. I think that it just depends on other factors, right?
That's a pretty, yeah. If it depends, if you can take your billion and transition it ethically into 2 and 3 billion and then build a YouTube channel to get to 10 million after a year or whatever. Yeah, for sure. But I think it could be interesting.
I'd take the billion.
Yeah,
Personal.
you could probably do a lot with that, but yeah, these are interesting questions. Or what if it's 100 million or 10 million subscribers? These types of questions are.
It also depends whether or not you want fame and whether you want to carry that torch, and do you want to be a mouthpiece?
What can you communicate with that 10 million subscribership?
Mm-hmm. What's your purpose? What are you trying to do?
What are you trying to do? Yeah.
And what's the strategy behind that?
Yes, I really liked your answer on connections. I like that, to consciousness. I like that a lot. Why do you think reality exists?
Why do I think reality exists? Ooh, that's such a deep question. Why do I think reality exists? I think reality exists because so much of what we tell ourselves is not real. And it's fake. And I think so much is made up. There's so much assumptions. And so much of how we see the world isn't even real. So because of that, there's reality.
I'm so interested in your line
Is that
of
a
thinking.
weird
I'm so interested
philosophical?
in your line of thinking there. Like this reality that we're immersed in, like, you know, like fish in an ocean,
Yeah.
if you will. Why does it exist? And your answer is
Because it's not real.
because it's not real.
Yeah.
Okay, and so tell us more. What do you mean by
Well,
that?
because I think of so much about how we view the world, ourselves, other people, and even our connection and our consciousness to it isn't real. It's what we want to tell ourselves to feel better and to live and to wake up the next day and to have like a sense of purpose or whatever. I don't think it's necessarily real. I mean,
Okay, I'm following your line of
so
thought
it
now.
goes back
There it
down to
is.
ego.
There it is. I'm following. Okay.
So because of that,
The perception is not veridical. The perception is something that we tell ourselves a story to be happier and healthier and more meaningful every day. And so this is most real.
And just the
And
way
don't
people
even-
are. I think
yeah.
people are very magical human beings with like all sorts of crazy imaginations and just wild stuff that goes on all the time to the point where people don't even realize it. So I think so much of our thoughts aren't real. You know?
Have you given the words infinity or eternity much contemplation?
I can't say I have.
What are the first things that come to mind when you hear infinity or eternity?
I think of space, but I feel like that's like the obvious answer. But I don't know. Like I think infinity or eternally, I just think of something influential that lasts forever. It's like something that just transcends, you know, over time.
And then
Doesn't have to be physical.
is that what we are?
I think that, well, for me, I think I'm a moment in time. You know, I think my energy will carry, but physically, not really.
And when you say your energy will carry,
Through other people. And that's how it lives on. You know? I mean, I think that very, very little, there's a very small amount of people in this world who actually make a big impact. But it doesn't mean that normal people aren't impactful, right?
Yep.
We need them too. And I think it's like a mosaic that paints a bigger, beautiful photo. But, you know, not everyone is going to be like Elon Musk.
yeah, we're different
Or
colors.
Kobe
on
Bryant,
color
right?
wheels.
And just who are just
Yep.
these huge cultural, impactful figures. But it doesn't mean that we don't have value or that we're not important.
Yep.
There's that host saying, what is it? Like, to the world, you're only one person, but to one person, you could be the world. Right?
It's a good
And I
one.
think that matters.
Yeah, that's great. I love that one. It's a really good one.
Yeah.
I think we should wrap on that. That was such a good one. That was so good. Yeah.
Thank you. I don't know where it came from, but I'm glad I remembered.
Yeah. To the world, you're one person, but to one person, you can be the world. Mm-hmm. That's hella good.
Right? Isn't it so poetic?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah. So that's just my 2 cents. Thanks, everybody.
This episode was featuring Jeanette Nguyen and her incredible life journey.
Thank you.
Her
I'm just getting started.
yeah, all of her North Star goals.
Exactly.
Fusing all things civic engagement with entertainment, and all things entertainment with science, hopefully, and entertainment
Yes.
with
Tech and education and
hopefully consciousness.
art.
Art.
I love art. You know, that's
Yes.
important too.
Yes. I love it. That's what we're about.
Yep.
Boom. There are some links in the bio below for you guys. There's Jeanette's LinkedIn profile, also her Instagram. Go follow her. Go connect with her there. Support the initiatives that Jeanette was talking about in the program. Really think about that a lot. You know, how can you blend entertainment with civic engagement, with science, with spiritual awakening, consciousness, art, all these different fields? And why is that important? And how can you get involved in that? Think about that, guys. Think about that. And go and build the future. Manifest your dreams into the world. Architect that more beautiful future our hearts know is possible. You can support us. The links are in the bio below. If you believe in what we do, support us as well. And that is all, folks. Let us know what you think about the episode in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Share it if it made a profound impact on you. If it's your first time around, hit that subscribe button. Like the video. What a fun convo. Jeanette Nguyen, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. I had fun.
That was so fun.
Thanks, Alan.
So much more to co-create on.
Right?
Boom. Peace, everyone.
Bye, everybody.